Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. $1,000,000 homes will be normal by 2033. I'll discuss why and exactly where they'll be arriving. Why are more beach towns going bust? What's in the big, beautiful bill for real estate investors? Then how to own income property with just 10% equity in it. Today on Get Rich Education. Mid-South homebuyers, they're total pros. With over 2 decades as the nation's highest rated turnkey provider, their empathetic property managers use your ROI as their North Star. So it's no wonder that smart investors just keep lining up to get their completely renovated income properties like it's the newest iPhone. They're headquartered in Memphis and have globally attractive cash flows, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and now over 5,000 houses renovated. There's zero markup on maintenance, let that sink in, and they average a 98.9% occupancy rate, while their average renter stays more than 3.5 years. Every home they offer has brand new components, a bumper-to-bumper 1-year warranty, new 30-year roofs, and, wait for it, a high-quality renter. Remember that part? And in an astounding price range, $100 to $180K. I've personally toured their office and their properties in person in Memphis. Get to know Mid-South. Enjoy cash flow from day one. Start yourself right now at midsouthhomebuyers.com. That's midsouthhomebuyers.com.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE. From Palm Bay, Florida to Palm Springs, California, and across 188 nations worldwide, you are inside one of the longest running and most listened to shows on real estate investing. This is Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. I think you know that by now. You can also find my written work in both Forbes and the USA Today. $1,000,000 homes could be coming to right where you live, only as the average home. A typical home, best said as the $1,000,000 median-priced home. They're increasingly common across America. We're going to look at the exact areas where this is going to happen next and why. Though real estate prices are only up about 2% annually at this time, a plethora of forces are conspiring to push median American home prices ever higher to $1,000,000 by 2033. The reasons for ever higher future prices on a national basis are supply scarcity, though homes aren't as scarce as they were, say, 3 years ago, incessant demographic demand, continued inflation, tariff pressures, heightened regulatory costs, the rate lock-in effect, remote work, and a perpetual construction labor shortage that makes it easier to find a unicorn than, say, a good plumber out there. All these things are conspiring to push long-term prices up, up, up. And sadly, this will make first-time homebuyer dreams, well, only dreams, not a reality for so many Americans. CBS News recently called first-time homebuyers an endangered species for this reason. Then I wonder if the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is now protecting these beleaguered, endangered first-time homebuyers. Now, the typical Canadian single-family home costs $779,500 Canadian dollars today. And get this. Now, of course, some U.S. regions will have rising prices and others falling prices in the shorter term, although the general direction is up. But more than half of U.S. states, 28 out of 50, already have at least one city where the median price for a starter home, just a starter home, is $1,000,000 or more. This is per Realtor.com economists. More than half of states have that condition now. Oh, and a starter home that's defined as 80% or less of the price of an area's median. Well, here we go. It is not just trophy cities anymore that are on the precipice of the $1 million club. It's these moderately priced cities that are next in line. And one trend is that they're located near already expensive markets. For example, Stockton, California is 2 hours inland from San Francisco, and Stockton is best known for, well, being 2 hours from San Francisco. That's about it. All right, well, here is the 2023 median price and its 2033 projection. Only 8 years away, really just a little over 7 years away. This is where we're going. All right, Boise from $465K up to $1,163,000. Boston from $623K to $992K. And again, these are 2023 median home prices and then what they're projected to be in 2033. As these $1 million homes become typical just in these somewhat moderately priced U.S. areas. Let's continue. Colorado Springs, $455K up to $1,020,000. I've made 2 trips to Colorado Springs in the past 2 years. I really like it there, really livable with a nice little airport. Denver, $548K up to $1,297,000. Honolulu, $638K up to $1,144,000. Portland, $501K to more than doubling to $1,052,000. Sacramento, $558 up to over $1.1 million. Salt Lake City more than doubling from $493K up to $1,064,000. Seattle, $694K up to $1,486,000. And finally, the aforementioned there, Stockton, California, $579K up to $1,447,000. $1 million homes are increasingly abundant into places that are surely not trophy cities anymore. They're projected to come to all these places by 2033. And this is very realistic because consider this. What will $1 million even be worth in 2033? Just a little more than 7 years away. What will $1 million even be worth then? At 3% inflation, just $789,400. All right, well, what should you do with this information? It gives you perspective. Waiting is not helping. Get comfy with $1 million homes that are like, just kind of all right. And here's the thing. $1 million home, that used to be like posh. That used to come with a waterfront view or a celebrity neighbor. And today, you just get a popcorn ceiling and a mysterious draft. In some entire counties, like I've told you before, in San Mateo County, California, the median home price is already over $2 million, just an average home county-wide. And I also mentioned to you that there's another California county, Santa Clara, California, where the median price is over $2 million. But there are more. Nantucket, Massachusetts, Pitkin, Colorado, and Teton County, Wyoming, all over $2 million county-wide. I mean, in places like this, $1 million home is a gut job. I mean, it needs a renovation. In these places, $1 million home costs less than half of the county median. So therefore, it is so broken down that you might not even be able to get a conventional loan for that property. And notice that the Sun Belt is not on any of these lists for now. Despite its growth, there's still vast land and cheaper housing there. The Southeast and the Midwest, they still feel like America's affordable housing frontier, but you've got to wonder for how long. And what else does this continued low affordability mean? It's the emerging trend that few people see coming, but we've talked about here. It's that coming tidal wave, this horde of new renters that are coming, priced out of million-dollar homes. Your renters are coming. And what does this mean for you? Well, consider owning low-cost rental property in those low-cost parts of the nation. We help you do that here completely free at greinvestmentcoach.com. A tidal wave of future renter demand means higher rents and higher occupancy rates. Your renters are coming. Now, last week on the show, I discussed the Airbnb arms race, how short-term rentals really need a serious glow-up and some major investment to compete in a lot of markets anymore. This week, let's discuss the trends in another real estate niche that's largely fallen on some harder times, and that is investing in beach towns, something that might be more top of mind for us as we are here in midsummer. The very best beach town for a bikini slim budget is Pascagoula, Mississippi, a Gulf Shore escape where the typical listing will run you a mere $166K. Can you believe that? Now, this Gulf Coast town of 22,000 people, it is somewhat of an aberration, though. Be careful. Pascagoula is affected by a FEMA rule that really limits the amount of renovation that you can do there. Atlantic City, New Jersey, it's another beach town with a jaw-droppingly low typical list price of $242K. Yeah, Atlantic City. AC is the name long synonymous with gambling and Trump property. Port Richey, Florida is another notably cheap beach town with just a $255K typical list price. And it's notable because back in 2019, GRE did a real estate field trip there where I and the property provider and a few speakers, we hosted you. And then we toured properties together in a coach, a tour bus. But those neighborhoods were actually about 2 miles inland. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, still just $299K. Corpus Christi, Texas, and Ocean City, Maryland are two more notably cheap beach towns. Now, especially after talking about the million-dollar homes, and then you hearing about these cheap beach towns, you might be wondering, gosh, should I buy property for cheap in these beach towns? But buying the beach house is just the start. Rising insurance costs and maintenance costs have forced a lot of investors to question whether beach homes are too big of a gamble. Now, with a few investor profiles here, we're interviewed. First, Levi Rogers, a retired Green Beret and a real estate broker in San Antonio. He recently shared how his property on the Gulf Coast went from $3,200 a year for insurance to over $11,000. And that's if you can even get coverage without bizarre exclusions. Throw in new flood zone redeterminations and wild HOA fee hikes due to inflation, and your profits are wiped out in an instant. That's what Levi Rogers says about his particular situation. Honestly, coastal property makes me more nervous than my first $1 million listing, despite loving beachfront real estate. That's what Los Angeles real estate agent Wesley Kang says. He's seen changes that would shock most investors. Insurance costs broke another record at his Marina del Rey listing. The owner just got hit with a $68,000 annual premium, up from $15K last year, while his neighbor 2 blocks inland pays just $7K. So in addition to hurricanes and slow and steady beach erosion, that has caused some homes to simply collapse and fall into the sea. Kang, the Los Angeles real estate agent, said his Malibu client just spent his entire summer rental income on mandatory seawall repairs. Another had to install $100,000 worth of water barriers just to keep his insurance. So is a beach home a good investment? Well, owning it really is not the easy, dreamy investment that it used to be. There are some investors that still think it's worth it, but they need to change their strategy. Roger said that he hasn't sold yet. He just had to adapt. That's the San Antonio real estate broker. He cut his rental period down to only the high season months, raised his rates by 22%, just totally ended low season bookings, and he promoted high-end upgrades to make the numbers work. He says you have to run it like a hospitality business now, not a passive rental. So the ROI can still be there, but only if you're really on top of it, actively managing risk and costs and the guest experience. Otherwise, what you're doing is that you are just financing someone else's vacation. And this is along the lines of what I was discussing last week with short-term rentals in general. Real estate investor Daniel Roberts, based in Idaho, he says beach properties are now riskier. He has reinvented his approach to stay solvent. He says, we improved our rental by presenting the property as a luxury destination, adding concierge services with dining and boat tours and even fitness sessions. With this rental arrangement, we earned 18% more on rental income last year compared to the previous year, is what he says. However, still, our profits have decreased a little since we now pay so much more each month for insurance and for maintenance. If you're shopping for a beach house and hoping for a deal, it might pay to search a bit inland for cheaper properties and insurance rates, and then it's not really a beach house anymore. Elevation is your friend. Certain oceanfront areas are experiencing a steep drop in some places, like Florida. I mean, can you buy the dip if you're looking for opportunities in investor areas like Florida, which saw a huge run-up of people heading there during the pandemic, but their jobs required them to return to the office? If you're in the market for a vacation property that you can rent out and possibly use as a second home, there are beginning to be more and more choices. So the bottom line here is that many beach towns are in a bust. Their profitability is under attack, chiefly from these insurance premiums that have as much as 3x or more for many in the past 3 or 4 years. HOA costs are up due to inflation, and then there's just simply the threat of more storms and more beach erosion and just the stress and concern that causes even outside of the insurance costs. Short-term rentals tend to be right on the coast or a short walk from the beach. The best long-term rentals tend to be inland. Inland long-term rentals are long where we have focused here on this show, and they tend to be stable and steady and frankly kind of boring, but somehow boring in an interesting way, if that's possible. They plod along, paying you 5 ways. Hey, is Get Rich Education the #1 real estate investing podcast in America? Are we #1? I've got an answer for you on an upcoming episode. It looks like the big, beautiful bill that was signed into law on the 4th of July will be advantageous for real estate investors. It extends a lot of Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. There are modifications to opportunity zones in the big, beautiful bill. But the big story is that 100% bonus depreciation has been restored, reset. Huge. That applies to qualified property placed in service from January 20th, 2025 through the end of 2029. Now is the time to accelerate acquisitions and renovations to leverage 100% bonus depreciation. I mean, this is great for investors. And what this does is that it allows you to fully deduct the cost of qualifying renovations, property improvements, and certain building components immediately, instead of you having to spread the deductions out over several years. Major. However, the big, beautiful bill does not do much of anything to help those beleaguered first-time homebuyers, that endangered species. In fact, in a previous version of the bill, it was going to open up millions of acres of public lands for new development. Now, if that happened, that could have added more housing supply and therefore kept home prices from perpetually rising and therefore maybe helped first-time homebuyers. But that provision was removed from the bill before it got passed, all right? So those public lands will not be developed. That was not part of this bill. And that's a quick overview of what Trump's big, beautiful bill means to real estate investors. To review what you've learned so far today, million-dollar homes are coming to more places, and that's due to supply scarcity, demographic demand, incessant inflation, tariff pressures, heightened regulatory costs, the rate lock-in effect, remote work, and a perpetual construction labor shortage. More beach town properties are going bust due to surging property insurance costs, and the big beautiful bill has some serious positives for real estate investors, but not for first-time homebuyers. There is a lot happening here at GRE. We, including me and our investment coaches here, are talking with you, our investors. We're talking with the nation's top property providers, as we always do, and there's just a lot of real estate news. How can you follow us to keep up on all this? Well, there are three main ways, and they're all free. There's no subscription cost. That is, firstly, through this show, the Get Rich Education Podcast. Secondly, our YouTube channel called Get Rich Education. Yes, we are consistently branded. And the third main way to follow us is with our Don't Quit Your Daydream newsletter. Sign up free by texting GRE to 66866. That's text GRE to 66866. And there you go. They're in. They are the three main ways to follow us: podcast, YouTube channel, and newsletter. And then also our social media channels. Get Rich Education can be found at all the usual places: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. But our handle is Get Rich Ed on X because there is a character count limit there. That's how to follow us. You can find our recommended property providers at GRE Marketplace when you're getting actionable. And then to engage with us for a free strategy session to learn your goals and really put you on a financially free trajectory, you can do that with our investment coaches directly. Book time on their calendar at greinvestmentcoach.com. What is happening with the future of the Fed and interest rates? And how can you put as little as 15%, even 10% down on an income property? That's next. I'm Keith Weinhold. You're listening to Get Rich Education. The same place where I get my own mortgage loans is where you can get yours. Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They provided our listeners with more loans than anyone because they specialize in income properties. They help you build a long-term plan for growing your real estate empire with leverage. Start your pre-qual and even chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. While it's on your mind, start at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's ridgelendinggroup.com. You know what's crazy? Your bank is getting rich off of you. The average savings account pays less than 1%. It's like laughable. Meanwhile, if your money isn't making at least 4%, you're losing to inflation. That's why I started putting my own money into the FFI Liquidity Fund. It's super simple. Your cash can pull in up to 8% returns and it compounds. It's not some high-risk gamble like digital or AI stock trading. It's pretty low risk because they've got a 10-plus year track record of paying investors on time, in full, every time. I mean, I wouldn't be talking about it if I wasn't invested myself. You can invest as little as $25K and you keep earning until you decide you want your money back. No weird lockups or anything like that. So if you're like me and tired of your liquid funds just sitting there doing nothing, check it out. Text FAMILY to 66866 to learn about Freedom Family Investments Liquidity Fund. Again, text FAMILY to 66866.
This is Peak Prosperity's Chris Martinson. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold and don't quit your daydream.
It's terrific to have a familiar voice back on the show. It's an in-house discussion with our own GRE Investment Coach. Since 2021, he's met with you, usually over Zoom or the phone, completely free to learn your own personal goals, find the market that's right for you, and he even goes as far as helping connect you with the exact property address that would make your next real estate pays five ways property, like say you find 654 Maple Street in Little Rock, Arkansas, or Indianapolis, Indiana for you. He helps you through it all. And then he even helps you if you have any trouble after owning the income property. He's got the formal education with his MBA, and he walks the talk because he's a direct real estate investor, just like I am. Hey, welcome back to the show, Investment Coach Naresh Vissa.
Keith, thanks for having me back on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and the loyal GRE listenership that we have.
I think we enjoy talking to each other more than President Donald Trump and Fed Chair Jerome Powell do, for sure. And I think if anyone's been paying any attention, there's been quite a feud between Trump and Powell, and it's been pretty entertaining. Trump has referred to Powell as Mr. Too Late, like too late to make a decision. He has called Powell a numbskull. He has said Powell has a low IQ for what he does. So that drama has been really interesting. Now, Powell's term ends in May of next year, so about 10 months from now. And I think most anyone knows that Trump wants an interest rate cut badly, but Powell keeps holding tight. And what Trump says is that he wants to lower the interest cost on our national debt. That's the reason that Trump gives for lowering the rates. But Powell's been reluctant to lower rates because it might stoke inflation. In reality, I suspect that Trump wants lower rates just to juice economic growth. Like, that's the real reason. And then Trump sort of hopes that inflation only catches up with the next president who comes in 2029. And interestingly, back on July 1st, Jerome Powell said if it weren't for tariffs, he would have already lowered rates. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is a lot more complicated than it seems, and here's why. Trump called Powell a lot of names, and I think some of those names hold true if we go back to when Biden was president, because it was in April, May 2021 that I was saying, hey, it's time to start increasing the interest rates because inflation was going up significantly. Very quickly, it was going up. And if you recall, Keith, I know you did many episodes on this, Powell kept saying, oh, this is transitory. It's just transitory. And my whole justification was, well, look, a 25 basis point hike ain't going to kill anybody. And they refused to do it for an entire year once we started seeing inflation going up. And by that point, inflation went up close to 10%. That's how bad it got. It didn't hit the double digits, but it was very close to hitting the double digits. So yes, I do think Powell was a numbskull for not raising the rates back in 2021. But today, I'm actually on Powell's side because there are still inflationary pressures. And remember, Keith, the inflation target is 2%. It's not 2.5%. They haven't moved the goalposts. It's still 2%. And last month, the media is not talking about this except for Get Rich Education today. Inflation went up last month. So yes, it beat expectations, but it still went up. The expectations were that the tariffs were going to create this massive inflation and we would be back up at the 3 handle. And it didn't do that. But regardless, inflation still went up. So let's wait. Let's see what the CPI numbers show. I don't think we're going to be close. I don't think we're going to be under that 2% figure within the next 2 months. And that's why I think Powell is justified in holding the rate steady. Now, with that being said, I do think because of Doge, we did an episode earlier this year on Doge, because of Doge, because of the latest ADP job numbers, the latest unemployment numbers, the private sector cuts that are happening at Microsoft and Google and a lot of other big name companies, I do think that inflation will eventually dip below 2%. You look at the gas prices have hit 4-year lows. Look at egg prices have hit, I think, 4-year lows or 3-year lows. I do think we'll dip below the 2% at some point. The question is when? Is it going to be, 3 months from now? Is it going to be a year from now? It all depends. So what does that mean for your question of, is Powell right? Is he wrong? Is he a numbskull? Who's right? I completely understand what you said is why Trump wants the rates cut, and that is he wants to juice everything because he looks great and it's a midterm election year next year and he doesn't want to lose his Congress. And I understand the political side of it. But the number one issue, according to almost every poll out there before the election, the number one issue on voters' minds was inflation. It's that the bleeding has not stopped and the inflation is out of control. The groceries are too expensive. That's what's important. And I'm on Powell's side here. I think you have to be patient. On the other hand, Trump is being very aggressive and he's looking to replace Powell. And he's going to put in his guy in there. I mean, the basic requirement for the job is you're going to get in there and slash entry. You're not even going to do a 25 basis point cut. You're going to go down to 1% Fed fund rates overnight. That's what Trump wants. I don't know if you saw that, but Trump wants a 1% Fed funds rate pretty much overnight because he's saying, oh, it's going to save us all this money on the debt that we're paying, interest payments, and da 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 da. I get where both of these guys are coming from. I think the ideal scenario, because Powell, it looks like he's safe until maybe the end of the year. I think we hit that 2% point definitely by the end of the year. And Powell will start cutting in September. We'll see a 25 base. That's what I think. I think we'll see a 25 basis point cut in September, maybe a 50 basis point cut in the next meeting after that, and maybe even a 75 basis point cut in December. And that way, when the new guy comes in, he doesn't have to do this drastic COVID March 2020 type of cut of slashing rates close to zero overnight. We do it in a gradual. I think that would be better for the country and for the economy and for the global economy. So that's where I see things. But regardless, we know for a fact that the interest rates, the cutting is beginning soon, and the rates are going to be very low sometime next year, if not by the end of next year. We know for a fact that the rates are going to be very, very low. And what that means for the housing market is that, and let's talk about the housing market really quickly. The inventory in the housing market the supply side is very high. This is not 2021, 2022 when homes are flying off the shelves and people were paying above asking price for homes. We're in a situation where the inventory has piled up. Home values have somewhat stagnated. If rates are going to bottom next year, then buying real estate, I don't want to say I'm not calling a bottom, but I'm saying that you can expect real estate home values to skyrocket once rates hit that 1%. Because of the Fed funds rate. So right now, we're seeing demand from investors because they're thinking what I'm saying, hey, the Fed is going to slash. We know that for sure because of Trump. And when that happens, institutions, individuals, they're going to start taking out debt and the housing market's going to skyrocket. Just like stocks, I mean, really most assets are going to skyrocket. So right now, I think is an excellent time to be looking at buying real estate. And then you can just refinance later when the rates bottom in a year or two.
And when you talk about high housing supply, I think what you mean is higher housing supply. Nationally, we're still 12% undersupplied. It's just the fact that we have 30% more available housing supply in the 1 to 4 unit space than we did a year ago at this time. When we're talking about interest rates and things that have to do with the larger economy here, you, the listener, should be aware that Naresh has often been tapped and interviewed by major network television on his opinions on these sort of broader economic issues. So he is qualified that way. And to give you an idea with what we're talking about, with this desire to get the Fed funds rate down to 1%, whether that happens or not, today's Fed funds rate is around 4.3%, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the potential cut. I don't forecast interest rates because it's very difficult to do, but it's interesting that Naresh has done some of that. And let's remember that Trump is actually the one that appointed Jerome Powell back in Trump's first term, and there's been a good bit of speculation around who the next appointee might be. In fact, if that appointee is named several months before Powell's termination of his term in May, some people think that could be Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, that alone could change the dynamic, that you would get someone more likely on board to make rate cuts and name them before they actually come into office.
Well, the president decides, he appoints that position. And we know for a fact 100% Trump is only going to put his person in there, man or woman, we don't know, but he's going to put his person. And the basic requirement for the job, it's not a PhD from Harvard or being a multi-billionaire like Scott Bessent. The basic requirement for the job is cutting the rates to 1%, the Fed funds rate to 1%. That's the bare minimum basic requirement for the job. And there are apparently lines of people who are lining up because they think they fit that requirement. So we know that's coming. We know it's coming at the latest next year, like I said, because Trump said it himself. And to be calling somebody a numbskull and all these names, he's very serious about this. It's an issue that means a lot to him. And again, I get where Trump's coming from. The government would save a lot of money on interest payments. And Trump's justification is inflation is low. Let's just try it, which I somewhat agree with. He says, let's just try it. And if the inflation goes back up, then you just raise the rates. Don't, Powell was too late in 2021. The next guy won't be too late in raising rates this time around if the inflation does go back up. So it's a different strategy that would definitely juice the economy overnight. Of course, he wants that. Everyone's got their own opinions. I'm of the opinion I think the Fed actually is, for the most part, post 2022 has done a good job. In fact, I did an episode with you, I think a year and a half ago, saying that the Fed should have done more rate hikes because we would have been at 2% inflation a year ago had the Fed done one or two more rate hikes, in my opinion. And we saw at the end of Biden's presidency, inflation started going back up when the Fed actually cut rates when they should have been raising rates previously. So with that being said, this is a good opportunity for investors because we are in that doldrum right now where we know the rate cuts are coming. At least you and I and GRE listeners know that the rate cuts are coming. Not everybody knows that they're coming because they may not pay attention or follow this stuff as closely as we do. We know that they're coming. And what that means for the housing market is, like I said, juice. We can see juice in stocks. We can see juice in housing. We can see juice in Bitcoin and other commodities.
Well, you use the word doldrum. Yes, the housing market is in somewhat of a doldrum. We have lower transaction volume than we have historically, for sure. And really, that's led by, we need to keep in mind as investors that that's lower owner occupant purchase volume because investor purchases have stayed pretty steady.
Yes. I'll say this, Keith. We work with a lot of different providers all around the country. I want to say we're up to something like 30 different providers.
Yeah.
In 20 different markets or so. When these partners are calling me saying, hey, we got all these properties and send me your people and, let's do business together and help us find more investors, then I know that the housing market has somewhat stalled. It's not doing terrible, but I know that it's stalled. When those providers aren't calling me or when they even cut off the relationship and say, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to work with you anymore. Then I know, hey, it's a really hot housing market. They don't really need me. And I'll tell you right now, every other day I have a partner of ours. I had to tell them to stop calling. I said an email will do or a text message will do. You don't need to call and leave me a bunch of voicemails. I have people calling me every day saying, hey, we got all these properties and they're amazing and they're beautiful and send your people to us, which tells me that it could be actually a good time to start buying because it's not, like I said, 2021. It's not 2022. It could be a good time right now because the investor will hold more leverage and the incentives that these partners are offering are second to none. I've never seen incentives this good. I mean, it's not just the free property management. It's not just the closing cost credit. It's negotiating prices of homes. It's getting cash back at closing. So just literally having a check overnighted to you that's in the 5 figures cash back for buying property. So overall, I think it's a really, really good time right now to get into real estate. Probably one of the best times, if not the best time, since I joined GRE at the end of 2021.
Of course, Ken McElroy was just here on the show with us a couple weeks ago talking about what a good time it is to buy from his perspective as well. But yeah, Naresh, I appreciate that. You're kind of letting the listener peek behind the curtain a little bit. We really get a good read on the pulse of the market here. And part of our job is to vet those providers that we work with. Yeah, Naresh, well, one property strategy that almost transcends eras is the BRRRR strategy. It's such a popular strategy with investors because you can get into a deal and have so little of your money left in the deal that you could end up with 10-to-1 leverage. So the BRRRR strategy, that's probably the most popular strategy with our investors. So tell us more about that.
We've done several webinars already about BRRRR, and this has become the most popular strategy with our investors, hands down. The amount of volume that we're seeing with our investors, people who keep buying more and more because the first one worked out. Now, there are some that didn't work out, and that has more to do with the provider than it has to do with the strategy. The strategy is simply buy a property that needs to be completely rehabbed, refurbished. It's you buy a property as is, you take out a hard money loan to renovate the property, to gut it, to update it, bring it up to speed.
Or
You
pay
rent it,
cash.
or you can pay cash. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have the cash to pay for such a property." So there, the hard money loan is there, or you could pay cash. My recommendation personally is take out the hard money loan because you have that extra layer of protection, that extra body who will make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, because that's a problem that we've seen with BRRRR, where some of the providers, some of the sellers, they'll sell the property and then they just disappear after that. And we don't want that to happen. We want the rehab to actually get done because the real value is by doing the rehab, making the house nice, renting it out to a tenant, and then refinancing the property because the home value is going to appreciate so much. In some cases, some of our investors got 100% appreciation from what they bought the property at, and they were able to use that equity, 100% of that equity, into the down payment, into other fees, so they didn't have to pay anything out of pocket for the property. So that's the beauty of the BRRRR strategy. And like I said, what's most important, because we've already done we've done a Memphis BRRRR webinar, we've done a Cleveland BRRRR webinar. Now we're doing a Little Rock BRRRR webinar, and I think this is the best BRRRR out of all the BRRRRs that we've done. And the reason is because the team we're working with, they have a legitimate company operation. They have a property management division. They have a rehab division. They have a sales division. They have a management division. This is not like a one-man show or a two-person company trying to do all these rehabs all at once. They're very, here's the schedule. This is what we have to do. Very accurate. And so, yes, their pro forma numbers aren't going to be as aggressive as what our investors have seen with previous BRRRR providers. But the problem with those aggressive numbers is that a lot of the providers, they overinflate those numbers and they don't follow through, let's say on the rehab, or they do the rehab and the appraisal does not come back at an amount that met the pro forma. So I'm just really excited about this because Little Rock is a new market that we've entered into. We have not done a lot of Little Rock promotion, a lot of Little Rock property. So it's a new market, number one. And number two, it's the team that's there. This is the best of the best team. And if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I want to do a BRRRR, where should I do it? You've got all these different webinars and podcasts on BRRRRs. Where should I do it?" I would say BRRRR Little Rock is where you want to do it because you're going to sleep way better at night and the process is going to be way smoother than the others. Yes, the pro forma numbers, they're not going to be as appealing or they're not going to be as outlandishly high as those other markets. But those other markets, Memphis, Cleveland, there's a reason why those numbers are so high. And like I said, it's this team in Little Rock, amazing team. Keith, I know you've had some calls with them. We interviewed their head, Alex, on last week's podcast episode. He and I are going to be doing this upcoming webinar on BRRRR Little Rock this Thursday, and we hope to see everybody there. Go to grewebinars.com, grewebinars.com right now to register for that webinar.
It's this Thursday, a live event that you can attend from your own home. And the benefit of you attending live is you can have your questions answered in real time. You can hear other attendees' questions, which will help educate you on this process. And yes, I don't know if this will ever happen again. We do have Alex leading the BRRRR strategy in Little Rock. He's been doing this for 15 years. He's got his vetted, proven team and a great system for doing this so that so much of it is all done for you.
And one more thing that I'll say, because this has become very popular with our online special event attendees, they hear podcast episodes like this and they say, "Hey, I want to jump on this before the live event because all those other people are going to be on and I want to jump." So I want to share, or Keith, I'll let you share our link for people to just reach out to me if you want to schedule a meeting or just email me. Just reach out to me if you don't want to wait until the webinar, the online special event this Thursday. If you want to get a head start, please absolutely reach out to me.
That's a great thought. You can go to greinvestmentcoach.com right now and get on Naresh's calendar so that you can have a free meeting. Any last thoughts about Thursday's big event, Naresh?
Like I said, it's going to be Thursday evening. The time is going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. The webinar online special event will last about 2 hours. Our listeners, our followers love these online events because they're highly interactive. We get everybody involved. They're fun. And the reason why they last 2 hours is because the people who attend are having such a good time that they want it to last that long. I remember a long time ago when we used to do these online events and they'd only last 30 or 40 minutes and then that was the end. But now our file loves them so much. I think if you've never attended one of our online special events, you'll definitely want to attend this because the timing is perfect before all these rate cuts as the housing supply inventory is at a 12-month high. So the timing is really good. The incentives are excellent. And like I said, we know interest rates are going to be slashed sometime next year, so you can always refinance later. But getting in at these prices is going to be a true gift. So grewebinars.com to register for this online special event.
We are all looking forward to it this coming Thursday. Naresh, it's been great having you back on the show.
Thanks, Keith.
Yeah, fruitful in-house chat, as always, with one of our investment coaches, Naresh. That's how you can leave as little as 10% down on an income property when you do that cash out refi with the BRRRR strategy. You'll get in at today's lower prices. They tend to be $140 to $160K in Little Rock, Arkansas. You'll lock in this year's rates with that low price with the BRRRR acronym, meaning buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. Well, that refi is a little ways down the road after your initial purchase. Longer term, if interest rates go up, you'll be glad that you got today's rates. And if interest rates go down, which many expect, then you'll refi. The only thing bigger than the next Fed interest rate decision or the naming of a new Fed chair is Thursday's GRE live event itself. Get ready. Really, the event presentation typically takes an hour or less. The rest of the time is your questions and conversations. So show up from the comfort of your own home, maybe with a beverage this Thursday, and since it's in the evening, probably not a stimulant, maybe a yerba mate. Besides seeing real-life case studies and understanding how the BRRRR strategy works, how to optimize it, and the mistakes to avoid, expect access to available Little Rock BRRRR properties, actionable opportunities should you so choose. Sign up free at grewebinars.com. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
You know, whenever you want the best written real estate and finance info, oh, geez. Today's Experience limits your free articles access, and it's got paywalls and pop-ups and push notifications and cookies disclaimers. It's not so great. So then it's vital to place nice, clean, free content into your hands that adds no hype value to your life. That's why this is the golden age of quality newsletters, and I write every word of ours myself. It's got a dash of humor, and it's to the point because even the word abbreviation is too long. My letter usually takes less than 3 minutes to read, and when you start the letter, you'll also get my 1-hour fast real estate video course. It's all completely free. It's called the Don't Quit Your Daydream letter. It wires your mind for wealth, and it couldn't be easier for you to get it right now. Just text GRE to 66866. While it's on your mind, take a moment to do it right now. Text GRE to 66866. The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.